one. Here we are, Tyler. I'm really happy to talk with you because, as I told you, I live in UK, and the situation from, let's say, an economic and macroeconomic point of view is not really, what's the right word in English? Fantastic. It's like, it's a bit worrying here. I don't know. I was curious about your opinion.
I would say Britain is too worrying right now. I think
Right.
you're caught in a very bad place. You've had about 20 years of productivity stagnation. Obviously, energy prices are super high. You have an inexperienced government. And right now, no one is steering the ship. The tides are pushing everything along. And it's not even a matter of human agency anymore. It's a question of what the markets will let you do.
Got it. So I'm not very optimistic after this analysis of yours. So what should I do, actually? What should the government do, in your opinion?
Well, I would start with this point. Southern England in particular is one of the world's great centers of talent. And I actually think the United Kingdom will come out of this okay. But with the war in Ukraine and high energy prices, this, in my opinion, will be happening to most Western governments. You're the leader of the pack. You're coming first. That is highly unpleasant. But a lot of it is not actually the fault of your country or even your current government. So I think they need more fiscal responsibility, but just a steadier hand, greater predictability. And the priority now is just to survive, not to get everything right or figure out all the answers. Like, get through the day, get through the week, and look at it all again 6 months later.
Right. Got it. I read some very worrying predictions about, for instance, inflation next year by, I think, Citibank, that said probably 18% inflation next year in UK. I thought, wow, I already feel like there is an 18% inflation here. Everything goes so much more. Electricity bills. I have a friend who has a chain of restaurants and pubs and coffee shops. And he told me that basically they pay double the price of the rent in electricity. So how can they survive? It's impossible to survive like that. There is no cap on business. So I don't know. It's a very worrying scenario, but I'm an entrepreneur, Tyler, so I'm always optimistic. We'll find a way to go. How is the situation in US?
Well, our inflation rate is about 8%, which is much too high, but obviously better than 18%. I think we're in the most comfortable position because we're energy self-sufficient, more or less. But still, living standards here have fallen a fair amount. Voters are unhappy. We have a milder set of all the same problems. There's disruptions in our treasury markets for selling government debt. So I would say US and Canada are likely to come out of this the best. And the Ukraine war also affects us much less.
Right. Got it. Yeah, here the Ukraine war is obviously a big worry. But I think one key word to come out of this situation is talent, probably. If you have talents around that can find solutions and properly behave, then of course good things will happen. And is also the title of your book. By the way, in Italian is talento. Talento is the title of your
Sounds
book.
better.
Yeah, it sounds very cool. Talento is really when someone is, like, how can you say, like Mozart, it's got the talent. Talento has got a lot of different meanings in Italy, which is very fascinating. But by the way, you have some great quotes also. I saw Malcolm Gladwell, Mark Andreessen, Sam Altman, that now is really into AI, and of course is written with Daniel Gross. Daniel Gross also was in YC, if I'm not wrong. Y Combinator, he went through Y Combinator with Paul Graham, I think.
He went through it, and then later he was the youngest partner at YC ever.
Right.
And he was head of machine learning at Apple at age 23, which is remarkable. Daniel never went to college. He didn't even bother to drop out. Just never started. Yes.
Amazing. How did you meet in the first place?
We met at a dinner organized by Mark Andreessen in San Francisco.
I see.
And Daniel and I were there. Somehow we just hit it off. We each looked at each other a bit quizzically, like, who are you? And he was younger then, much younger, obviously looked younger too. So, but I noticed whenever he would speak, everyone else would listen very carefully. So that to me was one sign of his talento.
By the way, Tyler, I'm curious about the behind the scenes of, let's say, that word. Because, for instance, when you say Mark Andreessen to an Italian, it's like saying, Steve Jobs, is that kind of person. They say, yeah, Andreessen, like somewhere there with the gods of Olympus, that kind of things. How is the context there when you chat with these people? What kind of conversation is there? What is the vibe in that kind of environment?
Well, it's super casual. Mark speaks very, very quickly, but his achievements are Olympian. But just as a human being, he's a normal guy from the American Midwest. He grew up, in Wisconsin, and he's still a normal American guy from the Midwest. But very few people talk as quickly as he does. And if you're in a dinner or group meeting with him, he will say a lot. He's very effusive and bubbling and very generative and always has new ideas. Daniel is relatively silent. What he says is extremely well thought out, but he will wait quite a while and then drop a bomb on the conversation, which is some new idea no one else had thought of.
That's fantastic. I think also, correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea of a talent in your team often is finding someone who knows more than you, who is better than you, and that you can learn from. And if I think about my Italian background, now I live in UK for 10 years, but I'm a small entrepreneur. I do my tech startups. But the idea in Italy usually is, I'm the founder, I'm the smartest, I'll get people executing my orders, and then you do the company with this family company idea, which is exactly the opposite probably of what you should do. What do you think?
Well, no matter how smart you are, there are plenty of people in your organization who know more about things than you know about those same things. So mobilizing their decentralized knowledge by inspiring them and having them trust you and having them believe in you is very important, because you can't always just tell them what to do. Your accounting people, your events people, your communications people, your COO, whatever it is that you have, those are mostly individuals acting autonomously. So there is an absolute premium on trust, I think. And that is another form of talent. Is this person trustworthy? And can they signal that to others credibly?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so much misunderstood often when you have to hire people. I think especially in big corporation, maybe you are scared that that person with talent maybe will grab your job. So you try to find people that are not so good. So that this is also, I think, an issue in many companies. What do you think in this scenario of post-COVID scenario is the right approach to get the right talents in your organization? And what if something has changed? What is changed that you discover maybe when you were writing your book?
Well, most organizations underinvest in what I call their soft networks, their acquaintances, maybe people who've never worked there, but who know who and what they are and can articulate that to others. So one way to look at talent is, well, you're searching for other people. Of course, that's correct. But the way to really do well is to have other people searching for you. That gets back to this point about decentralization. So ask yourself a simple question. How many people are out there not working for you who might recommend you to other talented people? And invest more in creating more people like that. It could be social media. It could be advertising. It could be your product itself. It could be how you treat employees and former employees. And on any given day, that doesn't feel like an emergency thing you have to do, but your long-run ability to recruit and retain talent is critically dependent on that. You need talent searching for you.
How are you going to achieve that? By communicating properly your brand on social, having a good social strategy, by becoming, for instance, when I see Elon Musk, every time I speak with someone like a startupper or someone working my sector, in tech sector, everyone would love to go to work with Elon Musk. And by the way, I don't think it's a great experience to work with Elon Musk. I mean, it has to be pretty hard. I don't think it's so easy to work with him. I don't know Elon, but probably is not an easy character to make these amazing companies. But he was able to build a fantastic brand and very sexy to work, Tesla, SpaceX. And maybe it's not the same if you say you want to work with Elon or in Meta. I don't know. There is a different level of appeal. How do you think a company can achieve that?
Well, some of it is social media, but if you take Elon Musk, one striking thing about Elon, most of the companies he's in, he's not just the COO or the founder, the co-founder. He's the best engineer in that company. So the other top engineers who are very, very good, they will come to him with practical questions. And he is very useful in terms of supplying at least partial answers or pointing people in the right direction. So that creates this mystique, this aura around him as this remarkable man, above and beyond what you see on Twitter, which is not always perfect, to be clear.
Yeah.
So I think the different people who work with him, they carry away stories and tales that enhance that aura because they come away so impressed. So that, I think, is part of his special magic. Now, I'm not saying that particular formula works for everyone, but you need some kind of formula so that people, when they leave your company, talk it up to others.
And there is a word of mouth effect. And people,
right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the product. So take company of Apple. Apple is not so innovative on social media at the moment. They were with the older Steve Jobs press conferences, but now it's a pretty normal company. But the product itself, you buy one, you feel it, you look at it. It just feels like a special moment in history. Is like you're holding it in your palm. And that makes a big difference for Apple and Apple's ability to recruit talent. People want to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's
very
a good
different
point.
formula from Elon Musk, but it also works.
Yeah. Maybe Elon got more of a personal brand. He was leveraging his personal brand and plus the product after that he built the companies. Tyler, I've been recently in Disney, and I got the same feeling there from the people. They want to be there because they want to be part of this Disney universe and the movies and all of these activities. And maybe, again, they are not amazing on social media, but the brand and the product and the experiences are there. So they attract a lot of talents organically, I would say.
And there are other companies, I don't want to name them, but mostly they're companies you haven't heard of. You talk to people who've worked there 3 or 4 years, they couldn't even tell you what they're doing in the big picture sense. They could tell you their daily job, but if you ask, what was your company about? What was your nonprofit about? They're speechless. They don't know. And that is amazing, but it is very common that people internal to an organization cannot express what is really going on there. And that's a huge mistake.
Yeah. I was speaking, Tyler, the other day with a friend of mine who has launched a company that did very well, is in the tech sector. They create basically lyrics. It's a huge worldwide lyrics database that is used by Spotify, Instagram, and so on. And it's an Italian company, and is in a city in Italy that is not a massive city. It's Bologna. Don't know if you know it, but it's like
I've been there 3 times. I love Bologna. My wife, it's her favorite Italian city.
All right, fantastic. So Bologna, it's not like Rome, Milan. It's like university city, smaller. By the way, food is fantastic.
Oh, the best food in Italy, perhaps. Yes.
Anyway, the interesting thing is that I was chatting with him, and he recently had a huge exit, really huge exit, at least for the Italian parameters, let's say. And I was asking to him, look, how do you get talents to work with you? Because the same engineer is paid 3 times, 5 times more if he goes to Elon, to Meta, to Apple, and they are, in Silicon Valley, whatever. So how do you attract? And he was analyzing the fact that they can offer basically an Italian lifestyle, which is cool. The food is good. The weather is good. Mm-hmm. They pay less because they cannot afford to pay, a huge amount like the competitors. But the general level of the quality of life in general is better. And so you are still able to attract talents. And it was interesting because I thought, well, I don't know if it's a storytelling or if it's true. What do you think?
Well, there's still a great deal of talent in Italy. I do think in particular sectors such as tech, Italy has special problems because the tech the tech sector pays so very, very well. And there are other ways you can stay, in Bologna if that's what you want to do. So it seems to me Italian talent in small to medium-sized businesses, design, just materials, things looking nice, furniture. Who do you want designing and installing your marble kitchen? There's a lot of areas like that have to do with lifestyle and quality of your life, where Italian companies have been number one for a long time. They're still going strong. But I do think Italy needs to diversify and develop more tech talent. It is over time not an area where the country is quite keeping up.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that with remote working, we'll have more talents from, I don't know, Silicon Valley saying, look, you know what, I'm going to live in Tuscany and work for, companies around the world. Do you think there will be this shift to live in the best place, best conditions, that you are get the best quality of life and then work wherever you want? Or we already back in a situation where more or less you work at the office? What do you think?
No, it's a permanent shift. If you look at prices for leasing commercial real estate in Manhattan, those companies are doing fine, but it's much easier to rent office space because their workers have not come back. The same is true with San Francisco and many other parts of California. Now, often the biggest winners have been individuals in India who may not be living in the nicest places, but there's a lot of talent there, large numbers of people. It used to be working at lower wages. Increasingly, the wages are not that much lower. I think the Tuscan countryside might benefit the most from this.
Right.
That's the place where people would settle. And not all of Italy is all that cheap, as you know.
Sure.
Try to get a 3-bedroom apartment in Rome, and it's not,
Yeah.
not exactly like living in West Virginia. So I don't think Italy right now is the big winner. I think they have an opportunity to restructure themselves, enhance the quality of their tech education, and become a big winner. They have the lifestyle, they have the climate, they have a pretty good time zone overall, very good time zone. But still, in terms of culturally speaking, if you're a very bright 16-year-old Italian, are you obsessed with tech? The percentage there needs to be higher than it is right now, I think.
Sure. Let's talk about interviews when you have to recruit talents. I turned 50 this year, Tyler, and I was thinking that for the last 20 years, I think for 18 years, I was horrible at interviews. When I had to interview for my startups, sit down and do an interview, I was horrible. And in the last 2 years, maybe I'm really bad, which is already an improvement. I mean, it's already better than being totally horrible. Imagine that tomorrow I need to hire some people for my startup, and I call you and I say, Tyler, please help me, come with me. Like, when you go to a negotiation and you call this FBI agent help you to negotiate, like that. So I call you, and so you say, all right, Monty, don't worry, I come with you, and let's try to do properly an interview. How would you guide me to find the right talents in this scenario that we live in today?
Well, first, I'm not convinced that you actually were so horrible all along. I don't know you or your businesses, but the mere fact that you've been doing it for 20 years suggests you're doing a few things right.
Yeah, I found the right business partners. Yeah, that was the right choice.
Well, you interviewed them one way or another, right? Yeah. So maybe what you gleaned or took away from the interview was quite informative. Maybe only small bits of the interview went the way you wanted, but those small bits can be enough. So I would focus on what were the small bits where you really learned something about your partners, the other workers, and just magnify that. So drop the narrative that you were doing them badly would be my first advice. But more general advice I give to people is just take care to appear trustworthy by being trustworthy. People will open up much more when you are credibly signaling that you can be trusted and that they like you and that you actually care what they're telling you. So many interviewers, they're just bored. They've been doing it too long. Yeah. They have standard questions. The interviewee senses this. Everything becomes mechanical. It's just an exercise. No real information is exchanged. I like for interviews to be conversational about things that the people care about with real interest, and you go away feeling it, whether or not you hire that person, but you feel it's made your day better. And that to me is a good interview. And just ask very direct questions. If I'm interviewing like a potential founder or head of an organization, I'll just ask, how ambitious are you? It's not a good question for, lower staff, but just ask them. You might think, oh, that's a silly question. But, the people who aren't ambitious, they're very bad at faking it. They're not used to being asked that question. They don't have a canned, stupid answer. They don't have a lie ready. You'll actually learn pretty quickly. Don't even look at what they say. Just measure the amount of detail and enthusiasm in their answer, and you will figure out how ambitious they are in many of those cases.
I like it. One problem that I always said with interviews, and that's why I try to find people better than me in doing interviews, is that I've noticed that some people now are so good in doing interviews. It's sort of a job, You go there, you have a perfect CV, you have the perfect answers to all the surprising question, or you are a great salesman of yourself. But when you start the job, then you think, wow, that is not good, like clearly. But it was so good in the interview process, something like that. So I don't know, maybe I was just unlucky, but that was my experience. And I was always wondering, how can you go through that? It's like when you date in the first time, you arrive there and you are perfect. You say, wow, this guy is great. Yeah, because you are presenting your best possible option. But when you live with someone, it's not always like that. So how do you approach that?
Well, often we should interview references more than we do, right? People who have already worked with that person. And references, they tend to lie or at least conceal the truth. They don't want to harm the person they're talking about, but you just want to give them space to tell you, like, well, this person is great, but if I'm going to work with them, what are the things I should know about how to improve their performance? Like, phrase it very positively and see what they say. But also, there's a question I like to ask potential hires, and that is, what are your open browser tabs right now? And that gets at the question, what do they do? What do they read? What do they think about? So it's about action, not their words. And again, it's a question. It's very hard to fake. Few people are prepared for it. They know you might ask them about the open tabs, so they're going to basically tell you the truth. And I have a saying. It says, personality is revealed on weekends. What does the person do? Do they try to improve themselves? Always ask about self-improvement. Yeah. What do you do to improve yourself? Simple question. People aren't ready for it. If they're doing something, they'll have a good answer.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great point. I'll rewatch our chat and I'll write down all the notes for my next interviews, so that it's a great point, because so many times I think you also try to be efficient when you do interviews. You say, right, we need to find 10 people now, and you start boom, 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 boom. All right, let's do 10 today, and you talk one after the other. So it becomes like a machine, and you don't stop there thinking. You calculate a lot, but you don't think a lot. You don't notice things that are maybe very, very easy to notice in front of your eyes, but you are into your interviewing process and checking the box. Probably that's also one problem that I noticed when you have to hire a lot of people fast because you need to grow. So probably that's also one thing. Do you think is when you ask, you said let's talk with the reference. So you call someone and say, look, this guy, this girl, how was she? And sometimes people say the truth. Sometimes people is like the LinkedIn reference. When I go to LinkedIn and everyone are great. There is no one person who got a bad reference, like, oh, he was really bad. No, it was such a pleasure to work with him because he did fantastic things, blah, blah, blah. So what's the right way to get to the truth when you talk with someone? It's just asking the right question is insisting? What would you think is the right way to do it?
I would say 80% of what you hear you cannot trust. Ideally,
Right.
you want to be calling people who are in some way connected to your network, and they have some loyalty to you and not just loyalty to the candidate. That's not always possible, but those references, when you can find them, are worth much more. And it's another reason to want to build out your network. So if I call someone and that person thinks, well, I might hire them someday, or I might do them a favor, they're much more likely to tell me bits of the truth. But again, phrase everything positively. If I were to work with this person and help them to improve, what is it I would need to do? And most people will open up somewhat when you put the question that way. You'll at least
Right.
see what are the areas of weakness.
Got it. Today, I read an announcement of a new startup, and the announcement was like that. A new startup raised tens of millions of dollars by probably Andreessen, by the way, Andreessen Horowitz, and they include the former founder of Twitch, the former founder of Reddit, and it's an Avengers list. And I think, wow, that's amazing. The question that came in my mind was, how can you spot the right talent for your company? Because on one side, you try to find the best of the best, the top of the top, the smartest person ever in the history, because they will have a solution. On the other side, or you cannot afford it because you don't have the money to get the kind of talent, or maybe your company doesn't need that person. Maybe it needs someone that has got a lower level, or let's say, of smartness. I don't know if it's the right way to say it in English, but it's more, execution based and get things done. Where do you put, let's say, intelligence in this equation of talent?
I think smart people typically way overestimate the importance of smarts. People have to be smart enough to do something, right? But I am much more likely to focus on, do they have a sense of mission? Do they really care about the work? Are they good at interpreting a social situation and figuring out how they fit in, how they can improve the talents of others? In many, many settings, that's more important than smarts. I'm not saying you can hire idiots. If the person just can't do the job, if they need to know differential equations and they can't add 2 + 2, you can't hire them. But above a certain level, more smarts do not correlate that well with success. And focus on values and how much does this person work on self-improvement over time? Are they going to get better? Or is like what you see, what you get?
How do you think that someone can really transform himself over time, in your experience?
Everyone has who's very successful. I mean, you mentioned Elon Musk, right? Steve Jobs. Those would be great examples. Now, there are lower level examples of people improve a lot.
Right. Because, Elon Musk, maybe he improved, but he already had this sort of maybe talent from the early age. I don't know. Sometimes I hire someone and I think it's not really good at the moment. It doesn't have a big experience, but I think, well, maybe it can improve. It can get better. But it's always a very, it's a bet. You don't know exactly what's the level of improvement that someone can have. So I was wondering if you had some idea on how to spot early talents before they prove themselves. It's like Magnus Carlsen now is the world chess champion with a lot of cheating scandal now. By the way, I discover very fascinating from a media point of view. But apart from that, when early on, yeah, I mean, there were signals, but it's not so easy to spot talent before everyone else. Do you have any thought on that?
I like to look at the following question. How old was the person when they first started trying to improve themselves? So there's a young fellow I just supported with a grant, not an investment. It gave him money from a fund. And he's 19. He has ambitions to work in virtual reality, augmented reality. But I saw when he was age 12, he built his own nuclear reaction in his living room. Now, very small. He probably had help from his parents. There's other qualifications. I get that. But the mere fact that at age 12, he was trying, he wanted to do this, even if he hadn't succeeded, that to me is a very good sign. And this person is not a top student, will not get into MIT. But at age 12, he was trying to do something. And then I'm very enthusiastic. And I think even ordinary workers, like over a 10-year span, they can just improve by 3x or 5x. It's very common. People absolutely do transform themselves.
Fantastic. Final curiosity that I have, and then I let you go. And by the way, if people are interested in the topic of talents, I mean, the Talento book is the book to read, definitely, because there are so many topics that we don't have the time to touch, but it's so interesting and goes so deep in all of these topics. I was wondering about the remote working and hiring online. Often I have people working with me that I never met in my life. We just met online, never met, and this is more normal for a lot of colleagues of mine. What do I have to change in this situation, and what do you think are the main challenges of this situation?
I find it very valuable when you can meet the person once.
Right.
If you have like a 2-day getaway, or maybe even just a dinner in some other city, I think the online relationship goes much, much better. Now, that's not always possible, but after you've met them once, there's somehow a level of trust where it may be programmed almost like animals to trust people we can sniff out a bit. Maybe that's not even rational, but the others are like that too. So just work as hard as you can to meet them once. It can't be for 2 or 3 minutes, but it doesn't have to be a week. An hour or two can do wonders. That's my advice for getting a better version of work from a distance.
Fantastic. Tyler, thank you so much. Good luck for everything. And Talento is the name of the game, is the title of the book in Italian. And if you come to Italy, we'll go to Bologna together then. And
Great.
So get ready for it.
I love the ravioli there, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Ciao.